call this meeting of New Iberia City Council to order. We have the prayer and the pledge led by Councilman Robert Sweet.
Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Councilmember Naomi Rovan.
Present.
Councilmember Peggy Pratt.
Here.
Councilmember Robert Squeer.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dan Doyle.
Here.
Councilmember David Merrill.
Here.
Councilmember Raymond Lewis. Councilmember Calvin Bagno.
Here.
Mayor Curry, you have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please silence their cell phones. And the first agenda item is public comment. However, I don't think that we have anyone
No, ma'am.
who's completed a card. So we'll move on to agenda item 2, which is acceptance of the minutes, and we have 2 sets of minutes. One set is on February the 3rd, as published on Monday, March 9th. Motion
Second.
by Mr. Swear, second by Mr. Begno. Is there any discussion? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. The next date to accept the minutes was from the March 3rd meeting of 2015, as published on March 9th, 2015.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Swear, second by Mr. Begno. The next agenda item are persons to address the council, and Mr. Prescott Marshall concerning our hazardous mitigation plan. Thank you for being here.
Yes, ma'am. I want to discuss with you and eventually gain your council's approval on our parish hazard mitigation plan. Before I go much further, I just found out coming over here that we had not provided information ahead of time. The way we did this with the parish council, there's a link on my office's webpage that people can go to look at it. So I'd like to go ahead and explain what the action is I'm recommending you take. And then I don't know if you'd be comfortable voting on it at this point and approving it, or you'd want to wait and vote at your next meeting. Right now, and it's kind of confused by the fact that currently the city of New Iberia does have its own hazard mitigation plan. We've been told by the Governor's Office of Homeland Security not to expect in the future any funding assistance for municipalities to create their own plans. This is what happened in the past with the city of New Iberia. You can do it if you choose to. Most communities, to include, Iberia Parish government, have used funding provided by the state to develop a plan. You can do it yourself. Generally, what you see is governments will hire a contractor to put the thing together. There's a lot of legwork involved. So my proposal, and I'll talk a little bit about the plan in a moment. My proposal is that City of New Iberia approve the parish's hazard mitigation plan, which we've gotten your input on, because when your plan expires in, I think about 3 years, ours will be good for about another 5 years. It's important that you be covered by a hazard mitigation plan. The reason is, if, God forbid, we have another significant disaster, FEMA may make available hazard mitigation funding. The concept is that, okay, your community suffered from widespread flooding. FEMA is burdened with all the relief we have to provide. After that, we'd like to provide less relief. We'll give you funding to reduce the hazard that you just experienced, whether it's flooding or safe rooms for a tornado, or perhaps earthquake, structural improvements in an earthquake zone. FEMA's proposal is, if you develop a hazard mitigation plan which we approve, you will be eligible for these post-disaster hazard mitigation grants. And an example is the one we used to harden all of your fire stations against hurricane force winds. That's a good example of what we've done in the past. What the plan does is it shows that we as a community have done an analysis of the hazards we face and the kind of things we would like to see done. And I'll give you an example. One thing that I beefed up in this edition of the plan is protection of all of our sewer systems, specifically the city sewer systems, based on conversations with Vince over the last few years. You're not bound only to receiving or applying for grant funds for those projects you've identified in the plan. You can identify it. your disaster might identify some other project that you really need to do, raising buildings, for instance. As long as you have shown FEMA that you've analyzed the hazards you face and you have a plan to deal with them, you're eligible for the funding whether your plan is in the plan, this project you want money for is in the plan or not. Likewise, you're not obligated, just because you listed projects 1 through 3 in the hazard mitigation plan, you aren't obliged to start with those. This is just to demonstrate to FEMA that you understand hazard mitigation and you have a plan for it and you understand the hazards your community faces. The plan is very similar, the plan which I know none of you have seen yet, very similar to the plan you approved 5 years ago, possibly before I even got here. The two major changes from three major changes. The first one is that we removed all the tasks we had completed. For the city that's primarily the hardening of public buildings, like the fire stations and the city hall. The second thing I included was to highlight the sewer systems, both the elevation of the electrical panels in low-lying parts of the parish. That's specifically a problem for the parish's sewer system in the port, and the provision of generators for sewage lift stations in other parts of the community. That's a recommendation that Vince has been giving me for a long time. So those are specifically named in there because certainly our sewage systems are pretty critical. If they're not working, it's a bad day. The third thing that we added to the program this year, based on some briefers we had, was to identify subsidence, land subsidence, and relative sea level rise when your land's going down, the sea's coming up, that will eventually expand the floodplains that we're seeing today. Not the floodplains, but the flood zones that FEMA adjudicates insurance rates on. The two specific projects I proposed, there's nothing you can do about your land subsiding, but you can know what's happening. So what we did was we proposed a project of getting an instrumented buoy to put in the out Vermilion Bay that would give us real data about sea level rise in our area, and to a GPS survey, a very detailed GPS survey of the entire parish, so we could document the actual subsidence that's going on, because we don't have any real documentation right now of subsidence in our parish. So I recommend that, although you have your own plan that'll carry you through the next 3 years, I strongly recommend the city of New Iberia approve the parish's plan. You're umbrellaed under that. That'll give you another 2 years of coverage, and of course, when we renew our plan, another 5 years, you'd be covered, once again, if you choose to be. The plan is about 200 pages long. It's really not feasible to print it out, and nobody wants a 200-page document. There is a link, again, on our page you can go to. I've played with it. It loads pretty quickly. It's easily to skim through it and look for anything specifically you might be interested in. So, Mayor, I'm not quite sure the protocol. My recommendation is that the council approve it. Whether everyone would be comfortable doing that without at least having a chance to go to the website and review it first, I'm not sure. So,
I guess we can ask if the consuls, first of all, you have questions?
I just have one
Mr.
question.
Dahl?
The plan you spoke about, that priorities that the city might have in the parish, going underneath y'all wouldn't have no say about our priorities. It would just be under one umbrella. Or would y'all have to approve the plans that we think are priority for our city? You
the
understand?
plan doesn't really affect our priorities. You're signing up for the parish's plan means that after your plan expires in about 3 years, you are still eligible to apply for hazard mitigation grant funding as a city. I'll confess I haven't been here post-disaster. Hopefully I never will be. The parish government could apply for a project, and the city could independently and would independently apply for its own project. So approval or not approving the parish's plan should have zero effect on the prioritization of your projects. They'll compete on their own merits. If the state said, Iberia Parish, between you and your municipalities, you have a limited amount of funding, that would be, if that even happened, I don't believe that's ever happened, if that happened, that would be a separate discussion. It would be unaffected by whether you had signed up or not for the hazard mitigation plan. It's kind of an up or down, on or off proposal. Do you want to be covered by a hazard mitigation plan or not? And of course, you are covered by your own for the next several years.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we have included our request in your plan.
Thank you. And I'm
also.
sorry, Mayor, I should have
Yes.
highlighted that right from the
And
beginning.
I think maybe that might be what Mr. Doyle's
We
alluding.
took all of New Iberia's current hazard mitigation plan and embedded it in this update to the parish's plan.
Okay.
So, we have our own plan now, but basically, we're being double covered by being included in your plan. We're having coverage through the parish, but also when ours expires, then we'll be covered.
You'll still be eligible for post-disaster
Right.
hazard mitigation funding. That's correct, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
What is your website? I'm sorry. Your website.
It's the Iberia Parish Government website,
There might be a reason why.
and if you go to the Homeland Security section,
Homeland, yeah.
there's a section for offices. I think ours actually pops up first. There's a big picture
Right.
of a hurricane, but if you don't see that, or you don't notice that, if you go to the offices under Homeland Security, on the upper right side, there's a bold text link. If you click on it, it'll take you right to the document.
Questions? I think Mr. Rack had her hand up, and then I'll get you, Mr. Merrill.
Mr. Prescott, in your preview, you said something about FEMA would disburse funding to the city for hurricane, tornado, flood, whatever.
Post,
Can you-
yes, that's what we want to be eligible for, ma'am. The sequence of events would be God forbid, a disaster occurs, and we identify flooding as a problem. We would then look at the flooding and say, we could see the water came up this specific canal, for instance, and I'm making this up. We can prevent these damages. We had 100 homes flooded and destroyed. We can prevent this from happening again if we put a gate on that canal. So we could apply, based on the damages we experienced, the hazard we experienced in the last disaster, we can mitigate that hazard with some measure. The hardest part is whatever project you propose has to be cost beneficial to FEMA. That is, you can't ask FEMA to give us $1 million and we get $100,000 level of protection. In my experience, the toughest part is finding a project where you'll get $1 million worth of protection if you spend $1 million on, say, a flood gate.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Merrill?
Mr. Prescott, on your plan, so you looked at our plan totally?
Yes, sir.
Every detail on it?
Yes, sir.
And what makes your plan more viable for us to go with than we already have?
I would not say my plan is more viable. My plan is just, it'll be 2 years newer. That's the only virtue it has is,
The time limit.
yeah, these plans are good for 5 years. The only virtue is when your plan expires in 3 years, you'll still have registered to FEMA that you also have signed on with the parish's plan, and that'll give you 2 more years of coverage. If you wait and you didn't sign on, theoretically, your plan would expire, and there'd be a 2-year gap before we updated our plan. And FEMA would say, we see that you have a flooding problem in New Iberia. Can we just see the hazard mitigation plan you were operating under when the storm occurred? And what I don't want to happen is the city of New Iberia doesn't have one because their last one expired.
Now, another thing too, the level, the raising of the property, whether we was with your plan or not, we would still be eligible for that if they did redid the whole zoning thing as far as the flooding zones and all of that stuff like that. Through FEMA, we would still be available for that, right?
Not under post-disaster hazard mitigation funding, which traditionally has been the biggest pot of FEMA funding I've worked with. There's so many programs out there to assist with things like flooding. What the plan specifically does is makes your municipality eligible for funding under the post-disaster hazard mitigation project. There's so many home elevation grant sources out there, I can't keep them
Right,
straight.
right.
So there's
'Cause I know
probably
there are
others.
some available for what I'm talking about.
Right, there are
too.
others available. I'm not conversant in most of them. But if you had, for instance, I'm trying to think, an earthquake. If we had an earthquake, we could, even though it's not identified in our plan, because none of us really think we're at risk of earthquakes, if you had a hazard mitigation plan, you could go to FEMA. The city of New Iberia could say, we realize our courthouse is not safe, it's not earthquake rated. And FEMA would say, well, we see here that you had done a hazard analysis, and you are eligible, and we will take your application, and if it meets the benefit cost analysis,
So by having the analysis, that's giving us a little bit more protection, is what you're saying.
well, actually, the analysis is to protect FEMA. What FEMA doesn't want to do, again, is give us $1 million to protect, a shed for public
Right,
works
right,
equipment.
right.
They want to give us $1 million,
We want to be adjusted for.
and then they know if this same disaster happens in a year, we're not going to come back saying we need another $1 million for individual assistance or governmental assistance to replace buildings and equipment and assist individuals.
And I'm gonna get Mr. Lewis, but I just wanna clarify something that I believe I heard you say, which may help. I believe that you told us that after our plan expires, we will no longer be eligible as a municipality to apply, correct?
That's correct.
So-
And theoretically, the city of New Iberia could say, we want our own plan that stands alone, we're gonna update it. And you could pay, I had budgeted $50,000 in my budget to do this plan. I didn't actually spend the money, so I can't tell you what it cost. The state had some funding available, and the state said, you know, if you let us do it, they hired part of LSU, Stevenson Disaster Management Institute. So, I mean, if you're willing to spend on the order of $50,000 in 3 years to write your own plan, you would still be covered.
But we would not be eligible
okay,
for a grant
okay.
like we were eligible
Well,
for a grant
You,
in
you
the
would be
past.
if your plan, the city of New Iberia's plan expires in 3 years, and you know that time's coming, and typically, you just about have to hire a contractor to write one of these. If you hired someone and you had a new plan in and approved before your old plan expired,
We'll still be eligible.
you'd be good to go on your own, standalone.
But what I'm saying is we'd have to fund it ourselves.
But you'd have to fund it
Right,
yourselves.
that's what I'm saying. So
The-
we would not, we had a grant for the last.
You had a
one.
grant for the last one, and GOSEP has gone on record saying that they are no longer going to fund it because they have so many municipalities in the state. They're trying to,
Right.
in self-defense, they're saying, we're just gonna do we know we got, what, 63 parishes. We can afford to do 63 plans, or help you with 63 plans. But they wanna get out of the business of funding any more
And
beyond
that's what I
that.
was trying to clarify, was that we would no longer be eligible for.
That's right,
funding.
ma'am. You're not eligible, I'm sorry, yeah, you're no longer eligible for funding to write
To
the
write the grant.
updated plan. The
To
plan
write
which
the
makes you.
plan, I mean,
Right, which, that's kind of the golden ticket to being
Right.
eligible,
okay.
should we have a
Mr.
disaster.
Lewis?
And my question is for you, for clarification. Again, we have submitted a plan that's been incorporated into the
Cor-
parish's plan.
correct.
Correct. And all this is simply doing is longevity,
Right,
giving us longevity without,
Okay.
absolutely,
That's exactly right.
All
sir.
this coming up with the
absolutely.
funds.
Mr. Bagnell?
And if I'm correct, after this, our 3 years are up, we're gonna extend 2 more years under your plan, should we agree to? After that, we'll have to present another, the parish will have to present another plan. Will there be a cost to the city, do we know, or is that
No.
something that's all?
I mean, if I have anything to say about it, no, my philosophy is it's a parish government responsibility to provide a hazard mitigation plan.
For the parish?
We will ask all the municipalities for input, incorporate their hazards that they're concerned about, the hazard mitigation projects they'd like to see included. No, if I'm here, we're not gonna be charging the cities anything. The parish has my office, it's my office's job to do it.
Right,
Mayor, I would like to make a motion to accept, I mean,
Okay,
I don't think him giving us that information is gonna matter one way or another.
right,
It's pretty cut and dry, that we all won, and it's gonna cost us money if we don't, and for right now, he said for 3 more years, we still need our plan.
right.
If that's proper, if I could do that, I'd like to
Okay.
make the motion.
Mr. Dahl's making a motion to, support, the plan for the parish.
Second.
Is that, am I saying that?
Is that what we need?
I would say.
How would, to adopt the plan?
Thank you, sir.
How
Yeah.
should we word it,
To-
the
Honestly,
resolution?
I would rather put it together in a resolution.
I would
than
too.
adopt it.
I
I
think
think
we
we
come
would-
back
Is it- Let me ask you this, is there any reason why,
Just procedurally, I think we'd be better off.
is there any
doing it
reason
that
why
way.
we couldn't put it on our next agenda? Is there a time restraint where you need
No,
this?
ma'am. We had to get it done by the parish this month.
Okay.
When is your next meeting?
April 7th.
No, ma'am, we're fine. GOSEP said as long as the
Okay.
parish approved it in March,
Okay.
we were fine.
That would be
I would
great,
be
so that we can
comfortable with
word
that,
it
too.
properly. If you don't mind, we'll get,
Good.
Mr.
I
DeQuier
would
to
do it
prepare the
otherwise.
resolution, and we'll put it on the next agenda. I think the council looks like they're in full support,
Yeah.
but we just want to make sure we do it properly.
Just procedurally.
Well, I was about to comment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for taking the time to
Appreciate it.
come.
Thank y'all very
We
much.
appreciate it, thank you. The next agenda item is letters from planning and zoning. Madam Clerk, if you want to read.
Final re-subdivision approval for property located at 605, 607, and 609 Victory Drive belonging to Highland Baptist Church. with contingencies that the landowner will provide a 10-foot easement centered about the gravity sanitary sewer line, in addition to easement boundaries 5 feet beyond the outside for each force main on the north side, and also shown on the final plat, the manhole on Victory Drive, south of T-Bayou Crossing, to which the gravity sanitary sewer line connects.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Merrill and a second
Mr. Bagno.
Bagno. And, Mr. Moore, David Moore is here, if you have any questions, but I'm under the impression that all of the contingencies have been met at this time?
Yes, ma'am. All the contingencies have been met. The Board of Trustees for the church met this weekend and ratified the granting of the easements as required, or as requested. So there's no problem with that.
Okay.
Just for clarification.
Mr. Bagno?
Ms. Jane Bro did call me today, Mayor, and explained to us that, what was going on, and that all the contingencies were met as was said, and that there were really no complaints from anybody in the area that there'd be a problem with it or anything, so.
Well, I think one thing that we do have, we have an easement. Prior to that, we did not have a right-of-way. Is that correct?
The utility lines and the drainage lines have been there for quite a number of years, and most likely there was an implied easement on that. There was nothing written that we could find on that, on those lines there. And so that's why we decided, let's go ahead, while we're doing this adjustment of the property lines, let's go ahead and provide a specific written easement. And this is the easement, I believe, that Vince, requested for that. So the church was fine with granting that easement and making sure that there is a specific written easement for those lines.
And one thing good about these homes is in that, it's in the same, it's not across the block, it's on that property within that complex.
That's correct.
Correct.
That's correct,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd ask you, please vote your machines. Motion carries unanimously. The next agenda item is a public hearing, and I don't know if there's anyone here that would like to speak concerning the public hearing for the change in the fire department ordinance concerning supplemental, not supplemental pay, the 2% longevity. Okay, there's no one. We needed to open, we can open it.
Motion to open.
Open the public hearing. Motion by Mr. Bagno. Second by Mr. Doyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak? Since there's no one from the
Motion to
audience that
close.
would like to speak, we need a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Merrill, second by Mr. Bagno. Any objection? No objection, motion carries. Okay, I want to give each of you a copy of some changes. We need to put this motion on the floor to adopt the ordinance, and then we need to do a substitute to make these changes. And I'm gonna give each of you a copy. I thought it'd make it easier. The changes were recommended. Oh, okay. We need a motion on the floor. You need to read it to adopt, well,
An ordinance amending ordinance 2003-01 by adding a section 12.4 relating to the distribution of tax proceeds and revenues.
okay, we had a motion by Mr. Merrill and a second.
Second.
Mr. Bagno.
Mr. Bagno, okay. Before you discuss it, I gave you each a copy of the recommended changes from our attorney. And I'm going, for the public record and for everyone to hear, I'm gonna ask Madam Clerk to read it. We would like to offer a substitute motion to make the changes that are in red. Did you need a copy? Mr. DeQuier?
You have the extra one?
Is that all we have?
Look, I have extra.
Oh, good. After we go through it, we would make a motion a substitute motion to make the changes that are written in red, rather than just doing it without y'all seeing it. That's why I gave you each a copy of it. We have spoken with, Mr. DeQuier and I both, with our attorney, and he has spoken with the firefighter's attorney, and they are in agreement with these changes. This is the last part of the negotiation to settle the lawsuit with the fire department. And I guess we can move forward now. I'll have Ms. Elledge read it so that everyone will know what it states.
Section 13.4. In further compliance, after all reasonable and necessary costs and expenses of collecting and administering the tax has been paid as provided in Section 13.2, the remaining balance of the sales tax proceeds shall be available as per Louisiana Revised Statutes 33, 1992B for the appropriation for the purpose of increasing and supplementing the salaries of firemen to each member of the fire department who has had 3 years continuous service with the City of New Iberia Fire Department, as an increase in the salary of the 2% for each year of additional service up to the statutory limit of 20 years, and including 10 additional years, should there be sufficient funds in the account, as the original appropriated funds dedicated for this purpose and funded by the aforementioned tax, both the base pay and the accrued longevity shall be used in computing such longevity pay.
Basically, just to simplify it, by state statute, the firemen are paid, they have to work 3 years before they get their 2%, they call it longevity, before they get their 2% longevity. Then they're eligible, and it's mandated that they get it for 20 years. Our firemen are asking in their negotiations to extend it another 10 years, where through our ordinance, we would state they get it for a total of 30 years. But it's provided there's sufficient funds in their quarter-cent sales tax fund balance. So that way, we would not be dipping into the general fund sometime in the future if their fund balance is not sufficient to cover these increases. So this has been agreed upon by the fire department and the city administration through our attorneys, but we need approval from the city council to make this change to the ordinance. Okay.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Swear, I'm sorry, who said second by Mr. Rack. Is there any discussion?
I got one question, Mayor.
Sure.
This could be the new ordinance, the one that you
The
have.
one in red.
In red. And when they make the ordinance, can they make it and make sure that 30's not right here?
Yeah.
Scratched out?
We have one
Yeah,
that's
we have
clean.
one.
Okay, I'm clean, that's what I mean.
Yeah, we
Sorry,
did this
yeah,
for
yeah,
you so
it's
that you can
okay.
see the
I understand, I just wanna make
changes
sure,
from
because
Yeah,
in
yeah, it's
10 years
scratched
from
out.
now,
last- Right.
you never
right.
know what's
Yeah.
gonna.
But we have
It's
one that's
online.
all in
It's
one
online.
font and it doesn't have scratch outs and all
Okay,
that.
that's all I asked, thank you.
Okay,
got a question.
and, yes, I'll get you, let me get Mr. Rack and then Mr. Merrill. Mr.
Oh,
Rack,
what the fund balance is looking like now?
they have about 3.5 million.
To keep it up.
Mine was
Mr. Merrill?
simple. I just want to ask, with the 10 years extra, if by any chance they don't have the funds in there, is it a range of time that we'd have to have
No.
before the, you know?
If
so it's
the-
just based up on?
If the 2% is due that year and the money is not in the account, they will, if they have over 20 years, no one will get it that year. If the money accumulates the next year and it's
Right.
there, if the money's there, we'll pay it. If it's not there, we
That's
can't
all I was
pay it.
wondering, that there was no stipulation on
Right,
maybe 2 years past or this,
Right.
that, and other.
Mayor,
yes, sir.
I don't wanna open Pandora's box, but, our firefighters, we appreciate the great job they do. But honestly, for the benefits, beneficials of the retirement, they really need to kinda start looking at their fund balance of their quarter-cent sales tax. Because, the rising costs of healthcare, it's eating it up. The quarter-cent sales tax, Ms. Roban, that's what I'm talking about there. Some get retirement. Oh, okay. And they really need to start taking a hard look. Some retirees benefit from it, but.
Are you talking about the
in
retirees' health insurance?
Right.
Right.
In the future, the way things are going, really, I want to surprise nobody in the near future if I'm still here, and we have to make some tough decisions, because I know at one point, we provided, which was a good thing, to all the city employees that retired with their health care coverage. We were providing, and we got the health care side, we were covering the whole cost. And eventually after what, maybe 4 years?
Yeah.
We had to discontinue that. So I just wanna make the firefighters aware of what's going on. So, maybe, it's a plan that they can come up with in the future that will address it before we get the fund balance where it won't be a question. And that's the extent of my
Sure.
comment.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Lewis. Anyone else? I'd ask you to please vote your machines. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next agenda item is agenda item 6, and it's property standards, and we have, Mr. Landry. We have the public hearing right now. We need to make a motion. We need a motion to open the public hearing. Motion by Mr. Merrill, second by Mr. Rack. Is there any objection? No objection, motion carries. We're opening the public hearing at this time. We have properties, 1016 on St. Jude, 617 on Hopkins, 906 on French Street, 72420 Orpent. That, we're declaring, condemned and ordered demolished and removed or repaired to conform to the codes of the city of New Iberia. Is there anyone from the audience? Right. Is there anyone from the audience that would like to address the property? We're gonna go to 724 because I think there's someone.
Kevin Romero.
I'm sorry, Kevin Romero?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Your intentions for the property?
Oh, no, I plan on fixing it up. I know, it's been a family for a while, and I was raised there and everything, so I was gonna try to repair it and fix it. You know, I have a few rent houses and stuff, I just never had time.
No, it's Mr. Mayor. Is that, no, it's Mr. Lewis.
Mr. Romero, I gotta be honest. I wanna work with everybody. I've been here about 10 years, and I just watch, this particular house just deteriorate, tenants in and out. It's wide open. It's wide open, and I understand you might have, other properties, I understand that. But the way this is just totally unacceptable to me. Now, again, I wanna work with you, but this has been a 10-year. Somebody moves in, moves out, the sewer is real bad. They have asbestos on the house. I grew up downtown, so I know the location, and I know what I'm pretty much talking about. But we need some immediate attention on this property. Because if, I'm not gonna play with it too much longer.
No, I understand. See, I'm doing.
Because it's wide open. I have to call the law enforcement. They use it as a crack house. Not that nobody told me. But I need some immediate attention on this.
Okay.
Like yesterday. It's that bad. Now, I understand it's been in the family. I kind of somewhat know the history on it, but it's not cutting the mustard. To explain what kind of plan, how you need us to work with you
Well, I just
to
need time.
accomplish
I need
this
time
thing.
to fix it. I mean, I'm doing one right now on C.B. Jackson. I'm
Okay.
doing one right there and one on Landry Drive.
Okay,
I just can't do all of them at one time. I'm only one man.
yeah.
So I gotta I'm working on 2 right now.
Right.
3, I can't do it. I'm not even
Okay.
gonna lie to you, tell you I can't. I'm trying to redo 2 of them right now. I'm just about finished with them 2. Probably another couple of weeks I'll be finished, and I have them 2 rented out. Then I was planning on jumping on that one. But I
Okay.
can't jump on it right now. I'm not
No,
even
no,
sitting
no,
here and lie
no,
to you.
I don't expect right
Yeah.
now, but I expect within the next 90 days.
Oh, yeah, I'll be finished. I'll
Oh,
be
yeah,
ready.
90 days.
Yeah, that's plenty enough time.
Is that good with Jimmy to keep everything in?
Rather provide.
Well, Mr. Lewis, would you want to make a motion to revisit that property on June 16th?
I'd make a motion. I know we try to keep them in line. What, nah.
Let's give him 90 days and get him to at least boarded up and secured. You know,
sure.
that would've given him time to finish his other two houses.
Okay.
And then he can get started on the repairs.
That's my motion, 90 days.
Not 90 days. Second by Mr. Doyle. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I had a question.
Yes, Mr. Merrill? Mr. Landry, Mr. Merrill has a question.
Oh, it's for the gentleman. I understand you want to fix it up too. I know a bunch of people, like Mr. Lewis said, stayed in the house within years to pass. But I've seen the house boarded up before, and then it wasn't boarded up. So what I'm saying is, you have to really just try to stay on top of it, because the area where it is, like Mr. Lewis said, is very vulnerable to a lot of people entering it in and out while you trying to do what you're doing still on the other
Right,
side.
see, what I was doing, I was working on it a little bit at a time, and then what happened, I was working on other ones too. So I
Right.
would stop, and they would break in, and they would steal the stuff
Right,
out of
so
it.
that's what I'm talking
So that's why I was gonna say, when I was gonna start it, I wanna start on
Right,
it, you know, I
right.
don't wanna
Stay
start
there
and
low.
pull off.
I
you know.
got you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming.
All right,
Thank you. Is there another couple in the audience that's here to see? Are they?
No,
about-
no.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't. Okay, we'll go back then to,
Wait, let me see what my next pictures are.
okay. Oh, they're not in order? 720.
1016, that's the
1016
next
St.
one.
Jude, that's the first one. 1016 St. Jude, what's your recommendation since there's no?
I'm gonna
one?
recommend 90 days. We sent the letter, and I don't know if anybody signed for it.
Which one?
Mr. Rack, that's your district, I think. No, I'm just asking you what you think. What do you want?
What about this?
Yes.
Keep it.
90 days, is that good?
90 days.
I agree with you.
90 days?
I agree with you.
Okay.
We were studying it.
Okay, Mr. Rack, you wanna make a motion for 90 days, and Mr. Swift seconded it? Thank you. Is there any objection? No objection, motion carries. The next agenda item, the next property is 617 Hopkins, is that what you have? Yes.
Yes.
That's another one in Peggy's district. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis, I'm sorry.
Giving you
I'm sorry.
The newspaper gave me
Mr.
this
Lewis,
shit.
he has three on here.
Jimmy,
Yeah,
on this one here,
we sent a letter to try to get them to board it. They haven't done anything. The roof is leaking, all the Celotex is falling down on the inside.
who owns, I have it,
If you, I'd rather not say at the meeting, but if you
Okay.
get with me tomorrow, we can sit down and talk about it.
okay.
Inspection.
I'll get with you tomorrow, but, I don't need to discuss, my motion is to, what is public hearing.
Yeah, we do 90
About
days,
90 days, but,
Okay.
it's not gonna be long after that.
no.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Lewis for 90 days, a second by Mr. Bagno. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection, motion carries. And the last property is 906 French Street, and this is Mr. Lewis's also.
Okay, this property, I think it was sold. Yeah. The original owner sold it in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm trying to find a new owner.
That's,
There's, there's a house in the front that's
Yeah,
in
that's-
decent shape, but these two are way in the back.
oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Mhm. Oh, I know where that's, where they at.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think you,
Give me 90 days, I'll find them.
okay, my motion is 90 days.
Motion by Mr. Lewis for 90 days, a second by Mr. Bagno. Any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I have one comment on all of these properties. We been doing a great job on demolition throughout the city since I've been here. But you know, it's a shame. It's a shame people won't take care of what their family members left from hard work people that had little or nothing back in the time, they'd rather just see things just go
That's
to
right.
like some of these pictures. You know, I'm not that selfish about things. I'd rather give it to a young couple for a little or nothing and let that young couple buy it and say, look, I'm giving it to you, do the work, Godspeed to you, hope one day your children will do better. I'm not that selfish, just let it rot.
That's the truth.
Just let it
Yeah.
deteriorate other
You're
people's
right.
property value.
Yeah.
Then try to
We didn't pass.
help somebody else, you know, that really could use it.
You're right about that.
It is.
The thing about that too,
100%.
that's a few houses on here, but there's a lot of areas,
Oh.
even some of them in my area, that
That's
should be
right.
on a lot of these lists.
Right,
I don't see how people living in them, and there's people living in them.
right.
Yes, some of them seem to be worse than in my area, you
It's
know.
horrible.
But, you're right about that, Mr. Lewis. I think I had announced on the council at one time, if anybody wanted to give the house away or the land to some young couple, you know. Southern Mutual was also doing it, trying to get that done, you know. But they're just not taking heed to it, so why should somebody live next to that? Or even a fire could, like in Lafayette, they burning them down, the
Right.
dope deal or crack deal or whatever. You know, so that's a good thing. You see, put a A on it. That was true.
Okay,
Sidetrack.
we need a motion to close, this was the public hearing, a motion to close the public hearing, motion by Mr. Rack,
Second.
second by Mr. Bagnell. Okay, yes,
It's getting time to start cutting grass. Grass is
Yeah,
growing.
oh,
I know last week we had a week of rain and everybody's behind. And before Mr. Lewis calls me with 100 complaints, I want to make sure everybody realizes that they need to go cut their yard this weekend and get everything to snuff. Try to pick up as much trash in your yards as you can, and let's get the city looking nice again.
and not blow the grass in the street,
And not
Yeah.
blow the grass in the street,
A
right?
lot of that going on.
Thank you,
please.
thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate your
Then you
work.
have a fine again.
I'm still off my game, Jimmy, so it won't be next week.
You know what, before we get to the announcements, I see Miss Kelly with the chamber sitting in there. I didn't know if you wanted to address the council. Okay, I saw you back there and I saw you sign and I said, okay. All right, well, we have announcements now. The next council meeting will be held Tuesday, April 17th, 2015. Iberia Parish Government will hold their Household Waste Day Saturday, April 18th, 2015, behind the Iberia Parish Courthouse. And we're also doing Project Front Yard in Iberia Parish, asking everyone to please clean up their property, businesses, residents, and there are a number of volunteers that will be working throughout the city to clean up. We will have additional yard waste and white good pickup the week after. We're asking everyone to clean up, cut grass, whatever they need to put out. Whatever area, I can't remember right now, I don't think I wrote it down. But Gordon's going to pick up whatever side he's supposed to be picking up that week, and the city is going to pick up, Public Works is gonna pick up the other area of the city. Gordon's is giving us the dumpsters to put the debris in, and the white goods, whatever we have, we're gonna have 2 separate dumpsters. So we're trying to get the city cleaned up. We're trying to encourage people
What
to
date?
put everything out the week of the 20th.
The whole week?
Put everything out, whatever your
April.
normal pickup, we just leave it out, because since Public Works is gonna be, we're not gonna have a regular routine. So just put it out. What we're trying to do is get people to clean out and get everything picked up in that week, and it won't sit there for 2 weeks. So the week of the 20th, right after the front yard, project, where everybody's cleaning.
But it's not the waste, not the paint and that. Let's get that
No,
straight.
no,
Right,
no,
let's get
it's
that
just
straight.
yard waste
Okay.
and white goods, that's it.
Old stove, refrigerator.
Right, right. If you have hazard, there's no hazardous, it's just household waste
Right.
at the parish government.
Make that
You cannot bring hazardous materials. So, this is just for yard waste and white goods. If you wanna do spring cleaning, please do it that week. Put everything out, bag it separately, have it neatly arranged so that Public Works can pick up in one area and Gordon's will pick up in the other.
Yeah, if Gordon,
They won't take
I don't have
On the
any
18th
idea.
they will.
They taking paint?
Yeah.
Okay,
The parish.
yeah.
okay. I haven't seen a
Computers and
list of
everything,
what
yeah.
they're taking.
Mayor,
Oh,
Could you
computers and stuff, all that
please-
stuff, okay.
please add to the cleanup to the resident on Hopkins Street. As hard and as long, as expensive as it took for us to fix those neutral ground and those sidewalks. I'm proud of my call, Jimmy all the time, by that store on Hopkins Street. They done ate up the neutral ground, they done ate up everything. To me, that's their responsibility. But we need to ask the resident not to put their garbage in the city garbage. If you live near there, put it in a plastic bag or something. Don't add your trash to those things. They were horrible.
Right.
Horrible.
Thank you. I have a couple more things. New Iberia City Council will hold a public meeting Tuesday, April 21st, 2015 at 5:30 in the New Iberia City Council Chambers, 457 East Main Street, to levy the 2015 millage rates. So we're announcing that we're having the public hearing on that date. Also, Mr. Merrill has his Neighborhood Watch meeting on Thursday, March 19th from 6 to 7 at the Slyman. And I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Swear, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Swear.
Bye, Robert.